welcome to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money, pretty much everything under the sun that relates to you having a happier, healthier relationship with money. My name is Steve Sexton. I want to thank you for joining us today. Hey, I appreciate you sharing it with your friends and family and associates. Our listeners keep expanding. We have a wonderful group. If you have comments, would like to hear a specific topic, go to viewers at savingwithsteve.us. Or if you'd like to just check out the website and see almost all 90 episodes, you can go to savingwithsteve.us. You guest gifts, the whole shot. And again, I want to thank you for joining us. You know what? Last week, you had Maddie Lamson. You know, he's a scientist, nutritionist, podcast host, health coach that specializes in weight loss, self-confidence for professional women and busy moms. Maddie has a weekly podcast. It's really cool. You got to check it out. It's How to Not Get Sick and Die. Prizes followers and clients with a deep dive into nutrition, how to develop healthy habits that last. If you'd like to hear more and see more, you can always go to savingwithsteve.us and look at episode 88. Today, I'm going to be talking about expensive retirement planning mistakes. You want to make sure you're there for that. Now, the start of the pandemic brought many changes to the job market, and 2 years later, we're still feeling the effects. The latest MagnifyMoney study finds that the proportion of working adults 65 and older is rising, and older Americans are coming out of retirement. This comes from rising wages, inflations, labor shortages, the whole shot. And we're starting to see a changing of the economy right now. We have MagnifyMoney, Ismat Mangla here. We can't wait to talk to her. She'll be right here in just a moment. Hey, Cameron, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome Ismat Mangla. She's from MagnifyMoney. It was really interesting that there was a study that came out from Managed Money just a few months ago about how older age adults are starting to go back to work. And you know what? We're going to talk about those reasons, but we've also, in the last couple of months, we've really seen our economic world change. To the point where, hey, there used to be like 11.4 million jobs out there, and now we're seeing inflation rise. People are spending less. I mean, we heard the CEO from Ford just last week say, hey, we have far too many employees. Others in the tech field are looking to retrench and cut down their workforce. We've seen many changes in the cryptocurrency world. And you know what? All sorts of things are going on. So Ismat, welcome to the show. A lot to unpack today.
A lot to unpack. Thanks for having me again, Steve. It's always fun to be here.
You know what? We're just glad that you're a wealth of knowledge, and I know you do all the research and you do all the reporting and things like that. So, you know what? Just a few months ago, that article came out that you guys put out, and it talks about older age workers going back to work. I mean, talking people over the age of 65. So what are the primary reasons why they were going back to work?
Yeah, so what MagnifyMoney did was we looked at the U.S. Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey data, and we looked at what things were like in spring of 2020, and then what they were like in spring of 2022. And what we found was that a rising share of adults who are 65 and older are working compared with like 2 years ago, right? So the figures jumped about a couple of percentage points, and that was interesting, right? Like, why are these folks, 65? That's generally when we think people are gonna just relax, retire. So why are we seeing that number rise? And I think we can look at sort of what's happened in the state of the world and economically, right? There are several reasons why that might be the case. For example, there has been a lot of competition among businesses for workers. We've seen that, right? Like we've seen sign-on bonuses, we've seen better benefits, we've seen a lot of choice for job seekers over the last couple of years. Now, is that changing now? Yeah, we're going to start seeing that change for sure. But the period that we were looking at, definitely, there was just a lot of opportunity. We saw in April 2020, unemployment spiked to about almost 15%, but by April 2022, that unemployment was back down to 3.6%. So, and employers have been fighting for really good talent, right? At the same time, wages have gone up, and that's a good thing. But I would also argue that the real value of those wages is not really what it doesn't correspond to how much they've gone up, right? Like we've seen inflation just get out of control. It's hit a 40-year high. Just yesterday, we saw the Fed raise rates again to try to basically tame it. And so it's really reached that level now. But even up until then, like inflation was like slowly creeping up, and people's money is just not going as far as it once did, right? So those things like the higher pay, higher inflation, all of those things may have sort of encouraged folks to go back to work. But let's also not forget about retirement savings, right? If you're going to retire, you want to have a nice nest egg. And we certainly saw the market, take a downturn in 2020. We saw a lot of recovery, but then this year has had a lot of volatility. So I can see why, a higher rate of older adults probably just need to work a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think all of those reasons are why folks may be sort of returning to the workforce. I've also anecdotally talked to a lot of folks who are just like, 65 is not that old. Like, I want to keep going. Like, I want to stay active. And, like where we're living to 85, 90, 95 years old, like, there's only so much golf you can play, I guess.
Well, actually, that's an excellent sentiment, because when the Tax Cuts and Job Acts went in place, they moved the required minimum distribution to 72. But it basically was done because older wage workers are working longer.
Right.
And you know what? In the Secure Act 2, it looks like they might be pushing it to 73, 74, 75. And again, it's because people are working longer. Now, you know what? On top of that, and I can also see where when you say, I love the statement anecdotally, but if you take a look at it, there's many people, depending on how they were invested in the market in the last few months, have lost 20, 30, 40, 50%. And if they were involved in cryptocurrency, they might have lost 60 or 70%. Now, if you're retired, that's a game-changing, life-changing amount of money to lose, especially if you're planning to take a regular income. So if you think about it, hey, I lost 30%. I'm going to have to make up 43% to get even, number one. And number two, if I'm taking out income, it's going to be that much harder. So if we go back to, people that were in 2008, many of them were, had just recently retired. And you know what? They felt, hey, I have to go back to work, or I have to downsize my house, move somewhere else to a smaller, I have to cut back significantly. So it's really, I can understand where people are 65 going, hey, this isn't working out the way I thought. And a lot of it comes down to, a lot of people didn't, they invested like they did their whole life.
Their whole lives,
which means they took on risk, and they said, hey, I'm going to take as much risk as I can because I know I'll make it up because it's the long term. Well, you don't have the long term when you're unemployed, so to speak, and retired. I look at that and I say, you know what? One of the biggest mistakes people make, and I just did this on, I'll be doing this today, is taking on too much risk for retirement, not looking at other ways. Sorry,
I was just going to say, it underscores the importance of how you have to really be careful about planning your investments and like checking in, as you age, because you shouldn't be like in 80, 90% stocks when you're, close to retirement, because you're just taking a very big gamble, right? And that is really devastating. I mean, that's life-changing for a lot of folks. One thing I did notice that in our findings was that I thought was really interesting, which was that more than a quarter of those folks who are 65 and older who are working are actually self-employed. And that number is about triple the rate of what like working Americans between the ages of 25 and 39. So I thought that was interesting because I think it tells you that, sometimes folks are sort of taking like maybe launching businesses or or going in a slightly different direction from where they might have been in their career, right? Like, or maybe they're doing more like contract type of work. And maybe that sort of helps kind of manage the kind of lifestyle that they want as well. I just thought that was really fascinating.
I think it's wonderful. There's many people that I work with currently that work as consultants. They actually tutor people in English, math, all sorts of stuff, and that's their self-employed business. I know one that actually helps kids take the SAT and the ACT, and they just love working with kids. They hated their 40 years of work life, so they wanted to do something that was fun. And they're doing it because they want to have something to do, number one, because they can't find other things that they like doing. And two, the income has enhanced their ability to retire in the fashion they like. So since they're self-employed, they can pick and choose when they take vacations. They're not working all the time. So yeah, you know what? It's not surprising that most of the people are good 25% are self-employed.
Yeah, and it's a great way to leverage, like you said, like I have relatives of my own who, are retired, but then they have a lot to offer and can do that kind of consulting that can really help, newer businesses flourish. So I think that's great. And it's so right that you're saying that sometimes folks just learn kind of new skills and pursue a different industry. Even things like certain jobs like school bus driving or something like that. A lot of times that kind of thing really appeals to older adults who just want like a part-time schedule. They, want something kind of like low key, but, keeps them active and busy. So I do see that there are a lot of opportunities and ways to sort of redefine your career as you, reach that quote unquote retirement age.
Yeah, I know the bus driver thing. It's so interesting because I know somebody who does that. He's 70 years old. And he goes, the best part about it for me is just listening to the kids and the crazy stuff that they say. It's just so funny. And he says, more importantly, it's he goes, he has like freshmen and sophomores in high schools. And he just says, you know what? The girls and boys who like each other, he says, it's so silly the way they talk and flirt and all that stuff. He goes, where'd they come up with that stuff? So it makes his life enjoyable.
Anthropological study, basically watching these kids interact, I bet.
Hey, everybody, you're going to have to stick with us. We got more from Ismat Mangla and MagnifyMoney talking about older age workers. So stick with us. We're going to be right back. That was wonderful.
Is that okay? I felt like
beautiful.
I cut you off a couple times.
No, that was just perfect. I love the back and forth and little anecdotal stuff because everybody's going to get a kick out of that. And all the things that you're saying is resonating with everybody. I know that for a fact, just because I was talking to a few people before this about this topic, and they were getting a kick out of what they do, especially if they're working with kids.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Kids are hilarious, right? Like, I really think they're like a
kids
bomb.
Say the darndest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Okay. So here we go. Hey, Cameron, we're moving into segment 2 with Ismat Mangla and MagnifyMoney. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. You know what? I want to thank you all for joining us. If you would like to check out other episodes, you can always go to savingwithsteve.us. I'd like to say thank you to our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio, New York City, AM FM 247, our wonderful distributors. You know what? They're all about helping us, our listeners live a life of personal and financial freedom. Now, if you'd like to go to Saving with Steve Sexton on Facebook, you can get guest gifts, behind the scenes stuff. It's wonderful. And by the way, every Thursday we have a Saving with Steve short. It's a simple little topic on how to improve your retirement. Now we're back with Ismat Mangla, and we've been talking about, seniors going back to work, why, and so on. And you know what, before we begin, I just want to add this. And speaking with a lot of people before we did this, we're actually talking about this right now. I have found that everybody has a different reason for going back to work, but more importantly, a different reason for choosing what they do. I have a gentleman, he's actually 76 years old. He retired the first time in 1965. He's an engineer, just loves to solve problems. Okay. And he is retired probably 5 or 6 times. We call him the serial retirer. And basically what he does is he sends his wife on trips with her friends, and he just likes to solve problems. And he went there because he wanted to have to keep his mind strong by doing that. I have others that work at food pantries, and you know what? They've actually, there are people who have had abundance in life. And what they like to do is they will sort through all the fruits and vegetables and food that comes into the food pantry, get it all boxed up for people who are coming in. And he likes to, hand out food, or both he and his wife love to hand out food to people who are in need. And for him, and I'm not telling you where he works because everybody'd show up every once in a while, he'll see somebody that, they'll come driving up in a car that's barely working right and all that kind of stuff. And, he'll slip them $20 here or there just to, hey, I know you need it, so here you go, that type of thing. And he's, if you ask him, he knows where all the shelters are for women, for homeless, the whole shot. He just loves helping people. And then there's a lot of older adults that just love working with kids because, like the show says, they say the darndest things.
Right.
And another reason why they like working with kids is because they love to see people grow and develop. So if they're working with somebody for 6 months and it's on some sort of subject, they love to see them to where they're having a tough time reading to the point where they can read fluently, they can write the whole shot, especially if they happen to be teaching another language. So it's just really interesting for me. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And it's also a chance for folks to redefine what their live out their values in a different way. Right. I mean, and I think that's a really cool thing. Like, you still want to work, but you don't necessarily have to work in that corporate job, like your friend, doing the food pantry stuff or solving problems. Is your friend available to help me solve some of my problems? I could use someone like that in my life.
Only if it's engineering.
Oh, okay. All right.
He works for an aerospace company. He just likes doing that stuff.
Awesome.
But you know what? Now, when it comes to the economic times that we're dealing with right now, where people are, or companies are looking at, hey, look, we've got let's not mince words here. I believe we have a recession on its way. In fact, if you look at the stock market, the stock marketing is a lagging indicator. So I would think we are already there. And with interest rates continuing to rise, there's less and less people are going to spend because they don't have the money. And it's going to be much more expensive for them to borrow anything, taking up more and more of their money. So there's a lot going on there. So, when you're looking at, hey, the world is changing and I'm an older adult looking for a position somewhere, and maybe some do need to work, it's just not an enhancement. What would your advice be to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. It can be hard for some older folks to sort of navigate the job market, like if they're not in it right now. I would say the best thing to do there is really to learn the ins and outs of really how to navigate the online way that a lot of employers operate now, especially when it comes to, keyword recognition and things like that. A lot of organizations recommend that older job seekers sort of age-proof their resumes, right? By sort of limiting them to more recent job experience or removing graduation dates. But that said, I actually think there's also a way for older workers to position themselves and market themselves as mentors who can help younger workers who don't have as much experience grow, right? Because they have a wealth of knowledge and background and skills, and that is valuable. It's really just about how you frame it and how you market it. The other thing I would say is that it doesn't matter how old you are, it's always going to be great to learn some new skills or pursue some different industries to kind of help you find work, right? So you might reach out to your social circle and say, hey, are there certain industries that are hiring, and what are the sort of skills needed there? With the advent of the internet, everything is at your fingertips, at least when it comes to trying to brush up on certain skills. Mm-hmm. And I would just encourage folks to be brave about that and identify what are one or two things that I can sort of polish up on to make myself kind of a better fit in this job market. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's definitely tough, especially as employers now are, we're seeing, well, first we were seeing hiring freezes. Now I'm starting to see layoffs, right? Like earnings reports aren't what, a lot of companies hope they're going to be. So, that whole great resignation that we saw, and then it was a buyer's market really for job seekers. I personally think that that's, that tide is turning now. And so I would really encourage anyone, not just older workers, to, kind of shore up their finances but also keep themselves in good shape for whatever lies ahead, right? So that means like keep your resume up to date, keep your network alive. All of those things are really important. You've got to prepare for that rainy day when it's not raining. And for some people, it might be sprinkling a little bit, but we still have some time to, kind of set yourself up for success.
The only other thing that I would add is in this world, if you're an older age worker, that means you're likely a baby boomer or a builder, but most builders are in their 80s right now. But that baby boomer generation is now dealing with millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, the whole shot. So it'd be one of those things where from a mindset standpoint, you're going to have to focus on communicating with people of different generations. And it isn't, I mean, quite frankly, I'm a boomer, but when I started, it was like, you know what, you got, a little yelling at, when you didn't do right. And now it's got to be completely different because people don't respond to that. In fact, you get a harassment complaint.
That's true. I think the key to any kind of success really is just adaptability, right? You've got to be able to adapt to whatever the current conditions are. And sometimes as we get older, we don't want to change the way we do things, but I don't think it's impossible. And I certainly know a lot of older folks who have been able to adapt. And then that allows the experience and the wisdom that they have to shine, right? And that's really what we want. We want to showcase the value add that they bring, because let's face it, when you have that kind of experience, you do have and judgment, which is not something that you can always, you're not necessarily going to get that in Gen Z or millennials right away, because it's something that takes sometimes years to develop. So I would just encourage folks who, may be frustrated with like, oh, I got to figure out another way to communicate. If you can try to adapt a little bit, and sometimes it's as much as just asking someone who's younger, be like, hey, can you walk me through a couple of things, right? That can make all the difference in the world, because really it's all about making sure that you succeed and giving yourself, the biggest leg up possible, I guess.
Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, Ismat, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it seems like it goes really fast, especially when you have a wonderful guest like you. So
it really does. You need to have me back more often, Steve.
We probably will. So, hey, look, everybody, you want to go to MagnifyMoney and just go take a look at the articles. So some really good information in there, the studies that they do. You know what? It's just something special. So, Ismat, thank you so much for being with us today. I wish you safety, health, and success, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, thanks so much again, Steve. It was a lot of fun.
All right, see you soon.
Take care.
Cameron, that was the end of segment 2. I'm going to be walking into segment 3, and then my conclusion here, or my finish. Okay. So here we go. Right. Oh, we're already recording. Sorry, Cameron. Here we go. Welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. That was Ismat Mangla from MagnifyMoney. She's part of the Value Penguin Group, and we're just lucky to have her here to shed some light and unpack the idea that many older age workers are beginning to work more. And the things that they do, how to look about going about it. And you know what? Go to MagnifyMoney.com. They've got some great articles. Now today, you know what? I just want to talk a little bit about expensive retirement planning mistakes. Retirement planning is definitely no walk in the park. It's complicated. No surprise that many of us make mistakes that can turn retirement dreams into a last-minute panic. As retirement nears, there's a ton of things to think about, like when to take Social Security, how much to take out of your 401k, creating a spending plan that you can stick to and invest your retirement savings. And like the butterfly effect, the decisions now can lead to huge life-altering consequences down the road. But the reality is I've got some little biggest retirement mistakes and how to avoid them. So let's talk about the first one. Failing to plan is planning to fail. A happy retirement is one that's stress-free. How do you eliminate stress? Simple, by having a plan. When you want to go somewhere, hey, you don't do this by jumping in your car, driving all around, trying to figure out where it is, and eventually arrive. What you do is you hit your Waze app or your Google Maps, and you put in the address and you follow it. Simple as that. A financial plan is plotting the different shortest path to reach your retirement goals. Decide what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, how much it's going to cost, and where the money will come from, all parts of your plan. But if your plan changes as you approach retirement, that's okay. It's your plan. You're welcome to change it. Now, does it making a plan sound complicated? Well, it is and it isn't. The best way to set up a plan is to find yourself a qualified financial planner who can help get you in and out of some trouble, okay? Or not in and out, but out of trouble, and help you create a plan that allows you to retire the way you want. Second thing, putting off till tomorrow what you should have started yesterday. According to recent studies by Bankrate, the biggest financial regret is not saving enough for retirement. And why don't Americans save enough? Because it's putting it off. You know, some of us say, hey, I'll wait till tomorrow till I have the money, or I'll start when I get closer to retirement. The thing is, the longer you wait, the harder it will be. In other words, starting small sooner is better than starting large later. Just think about this. If you started at the age of 25, just putting away $500 a month for 40 years, 5% return, you're going to have a little over $700,000. If you had an average of 10% return, you'll have 2.7 million. So you have to look at retirement as a long-term accumulation event. You're just accumulating and accumulating assets. Okay. Now, obviously, there's no guarantees here, but what you really want to make sure you talk with a retirement advisor so you can understand how much you need to save. Now, next thing is retiring too soon or not soon enough. If you think you're about to retiring soon, you may dream of quitting your job and traveling the world. However, before you call it quits, there's a number of reasons you may want to think things over. First, you may live longer than expected. You may run into unforeseen health issues or face tough financial times that force you to cut back. That's not to say you should retire early, but that's your plan. And run various scenarios to make sure your savings are going to cover your expenses during retirement. Maybe even think about creating a lifetime income with inflation steps up. Same with not retiring soon enough. If you're unsure your savings will be adequate, you'll worry as a result. Perhaps you work longer than you have to. I've met many people who thought they needed a certain number to retire safely. And after setting up a retirement plan with them, they come to find that they could have retired a few years early because they already had the assets. Hey, there's no need to work longer and have all that stress. All it does is shorten your life. So sit down with a financial advisor, determine the optimal time to retire. You know what? The next thing is taking too much risk or not enough. Risk is a funny thing. Take too much and you can lose your savings, but take too little, you can lose purchasing power to inflation. The money in retirement is money that you can't replace. That's why we lean towards low risk, low return investments as we age. But as inflation erodes the last value of money, it seems that safe nest egg drops in value in terms of what you can buy. Sometimes if you take on too much risk, it's not good. And sometimes you take on too little, it creates its own problem. Now, when you're retired, obviously you don't want to put your retirement income at risk. So a 30 or 40% drop in the market is game changing, and you might have to change your lifestyle in order to accommodate that. So you know what, if you can find a way to require safe guaranteed incomes as well as exposure to the stock market and other inflation protecting investments, you're in a great spot. Next, hire the right financial advisor. Look for somebody who develops solutions. Ask you what those real concerns are. Do you really want to fix them? How is it a concern? Okay. Understand mathematically that you're going to be able to retire providing you do A, B, and C, which what I'm saying is if you have somebody understand your truths, create a mathematically correct solution that will enable you the assets you or the income you need to live the life that you want. That's the time of advisor you want, because you're not really looking for somebody who's going to sell you products and things like that. You want somebody who's going to find out what your issues are, create a solution that's mathematically correct, and then find the products that fits that solution. Now, again, I want to thank you all for joining us here on Saving with Steve. I want to thank a few of my affiliates, UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio in New York City, AM FM 24/7. All these networks are dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirit, live a life of financial and personal freedom. You can also follow us on Facebook. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.